Welcome to chapter 18 of the book of Genesis. The Lord appears at Mamre. Mamre was right by Hebron, and Hebron today is in the West Bank where the Palestinians are located, west of the Jordan River, called the West Bank. The Lord appears. This is the eighth appearance of the Lord to just Abraham. In chapter 12, verse 1, the Lord speaks to Abram at Haran to tell him to go into the land of Canaan. He was 75 years old. Then when Abraham went in, God appeared to him at Bethel, and that was in 12:7 of Genesis. Then the Lord speaks to Abraham with the promise of the land, and that was in chapter 13, verse 14. Melchizedek, all of chapter 14, I believe, was the Lord, Jesus, and that was another appearance. Then in 15:1, the Lord speaks in a vision to Abraham. And then 17:1, the Lord appears to Abraham concerning circumcision, and he was 99 years old. And then here at Mamre is the eighth time. I don't believe any other person talked to the Lord as much as Abraham. Maybe Moses. I'd have to count them up to figure it out which one was the most. But it begins in verse 1, and God appeared to him before the oak in Mamre, at his sitting near the door of his tent at midday. And lifting up his eyes, he looked, and behold, 3 men had set upon him. And seeing, he ran up to meet with them from the door of his tent, and he did obeisance upon the ground. Now, generally, you don't do obeisance to a person that's of a lower stature. You would do obeisance to like a general or the head of the family, president, or not president, didn't have presidents then, kings, and generals and so forth. So apparently these men had an appearance that would put Abraham on the ground, doing obeisance to this higher authority. And he said, "O Lord," and now this is not the tetragrammaton, Yahweh, but Lord, somebody important. "If surely I found favor before you, you should not go by your servant. Let there be taken now water," Ethor, hydro, comes from that, "and let them wash your podos," so tripod, the pod, the feet. "Let them wash your feet, and be cooled under the dendron," a tree, a a tree markings in stone, dendrite. "And I will bring bread, and you eat." Phagus, esophagus, has to do with eating. "And after this you shall go in your odon, your journey, because of which you turned aside to your servant." And they said, "Well, thus do as you have said." And Abram hastened unto his tent to Sarah. And he said to her, "Hasten, mix up 3 measures of fine flour, and make a cake baked in hot ashes." And Abraham ran to the oxen, and he took a tender and good young calf and gave it to the servant, and he hastened to prepare it. So he's really going out of his way for these men. And he took vuteron, and the green means you can add that to your English derivatives book. It's transliteration, vuter to butter. And Gala, we have galactic, the Milky Way. And he took the butter, the milk, and the young calf, which he prepared, and placed it near to them, and they ate. And he stood besides them under the tree, like a waiter. You're watching these people eat and enjoying their dinner, going up to him, so, oh, would you like something else? Would you like a dessert? And so forth. And he said to them, now, who is the he? Well, we know that it would be a person of those men, which later we'll see as Jehovah, I have to get used to saying it the way it's pronounced in the Greek. And he said to him, and now here is these pronouns, and he answered, and he said, so these he, and he being God said to him, Abraham, where is Sarah your wife? And answering, he said, well, behold, in the tent. Scene. They used to do plays in tents. Came a scene. And he said, that is God returning, I will come to you according to this time, to the hour, and your wife, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son. Now, this is a quotation here, or this is quoted by Paul in Romans 9:9. Now, let's go and see what that has to say. And Paul says, but it is such as not that the word of God has fallen. For not all the ones from out of Israel are these Israel, and not that all children are seed of Abraham, but in Isaac a seed shall be called to you. That is to say, not the children of the flesh are these children of God, but the children of the promise are imputed for seed. And the promise was through Isaac. For of promise is this word, according to this time I will come, and a son will be to Sarah. So that is the quotation in Romans 9:9. And it continues, and Sarah heard by the door of the tent, being behind him, Abraham. And Abraham said, and Sarah were older, presbytery. We have a Presbyterian church, church ruled by elders, and they're advanced of days old, 99. I think Sarah was 10 years younger. And Sarah ceased to be in the feminine ways, so she couldn't have a child. And Sarah laughed in herself, saying, for not yet has it happened to me until now, and my Lord's older. I mean, she's thinking, well, how is this going to happen? We probably haven't had relations for 20 years or something, who knows? And, and I'm really old, it can't happen. She's laughing about it. Yeah, well, these people are a little bit off to say that, she may be thinking. And I'm putting this in my thought process of what I think she could have been saying, but who knows. And the Lord said to Abraham, so now see it's Kyrios, there is the Eavah, the Lord, Eavah. And he spoke to Abraham. So now we know that this is a theophany, it's called, where God takes a human form of one of these men that look like men that came visiting. The only other place that I know that the Lord took a human form that I can think of before this was with Adam, where he was walking in the garden, the paradise. And the Lord said to Abraham, why is it that Sarah laughed in herself, saying, indeed, is it truly I will bear, and I have grown old? And is the saying impossible to the Lord? At this time, to the hour I will return to you, and there will be to Sarah a son? But Sarah denied, saying, I did not laugh, for she feared, And he said to her, God's, no, but you laughed. And having risen up from there, the men looked down upon the face of Sodom and Gomorrah. And Abraham went with them, escorting them. And the Lord said, no way shall I hide from Abraham my servant what I do. But coming to pass to Abraham, he will be made into a great and populous nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed by him. And this is a quotation of Galatians 3:8. Let's go to Galatians. It says, the one then supplying to you the Spirit and operates power in you. Is it from out of works of law, Moses? Is that where it's from? Or is it from out of report of belief or trust? As how Abraham trusted in God, and it was imputed to him for righteousness. Then Paul is putting up this argument. Which one? Are you going to try to go back to the law of Moses, which we can't do because there's not even any priesthood or temple? If you're not Jewish, then no way. You're not even allowed to go to the temple. Well, know then that the ones from out of belief, which is us, these are sons of Abraham. And this is what I was saying in the last chapter. I don't know why so much has been made out of Israel, which is basically a country of non-believers, when we should be going back as sons of Abraham. And the scriptures saw at a distance that from out of belief or trust, God justifies the nations, us, the non-Jews, advancing good news to Abraham, saying that all the nations shall be blessed by you, which is the quote we read. So that the ones from out of belief are blessed, which is us, with the believing Abraham. And then verse 19 continues, for I had known that he will order his sons and his house after him, and they will guard the ways of the Lord, to do righteousness and good judgment. Now, they will guard the ways of the Lord. The ways of the Lord, odus, we have odometer, is the English derivative, is very interesting word, a lot to it. It appears over 800 times in the Bible. We see in Matthew 7:14, Jesus talks about a way of affliction. It's not going to be easy. Few make it. Few go through it. The way of righteousness is mentioned by Jesus in Matthew 21:32, and then 2 Peter 2:21 by Peter. The way of peace, mentioned by Jesus in Luke 1:19, and then Paul in Romans 3:17. So there we have righteousness, peace, affliction. And then Jesus says in John 14:6, I am the way and the truth and the life. I am the way. He's the way. We'll find out a little more here what that relates to. And then in Acts 13:10 and 18:25, it says straight ways of the Lord. They're straight ways. They're not crooked. You're not going wandering all over the place, lost, need a map or a GPS. God is our GPS, and he will send it out to which way we're to go. And then in Acts 16:17, it talks about the way of deliverance, all these wonderful things. And then Acts 18:26, the way of God. And Peter in 2 Peter 2:2 talks about the way of truth. So all these are the ways. Now there is the way. Now what is the way? How does the way different between these other ways? In Acts 19:9, it says, I think it was Paul, but when some were hardened, the Jews, and resisted persuasion, speaking evil of the way. So it was called the way. The early Christians They were called Christians. I think it mentions that in one place, but many places it talks about the way. Acts 19:23. It says, "And came to pass, according to that time, not a little disturbance concerning the way." So it's a way. In Acts 22:4, says, Paul says, I'm one who persecuted this way unto death. And Acts 24:14, he says, "But I acknowledge this to you, that according to the way, which they call a sect, and of Judaism." Acts 24:22 says, "And hearing these things, Felix, who is the governor, postponed them, more exactly knowing the things concerning the way." So even the ruler knows about the way. Then Hebrews 10:20, the writer says, "Which he dedicated to us, God, a way newly made and living through the veil, that is to say, his flesh, a way, a living way that is through the death and resurrection of Christ. We now have the way to the New Jerusalem, to paradise, to be with the Lord. Otherwise, it would be a closed door. They have no way of getting there. So the way is now open because of the death and resurrection of Christ. But what about those that don't know the way or didn't want to know the way? It says in Hebrews 3:10, God says, "Therefore I loathe that generation, the generation of the Jews that were in the wilderness who rejected everything that God had." And they said, "Continually they err in the heart, and they knew not my ways." So the Jews didn't go by God's ways, but we do if we go through Jesus Christ. And then in 2 Peter 2:15, it says that these Jews were leaving behind the straight way. They wandered, and that was to the way when Moses was up on Mount Sinai, and they wandered and went after the golden idol, a calf. And then in Jude 1:11, it says, "Woe to them, for the way of Cain they went." And that could be, I suppose, anybody that knows the true way and goes and walks away from it and goes another way. So back to the text, "And they will guard the ways of the Lord." God knows the ones that will guard his ways, to do righteousness and good judgment, that the Lord may bring upon Abraham all as much as he said to him. And the Lord said, "The cry of Sodom and Gomorrah has multiplied towards me, and their sins are great exceedingly." Going down then, so now's the third place where it says Kyrios, the Lord. "Going down then, I will see if it is according to their cry, coming to me, that they exhaust, and if not, that I may know." Now, you would think, well, God knows. If it's God, why he would know? Well, he does know. But he's using this to show to Abraham, so Abraham can understand and can question him and come up with the conclusion that we'll find out at the end of this chapter. "And turning back from there, the men came unto Sodom, of which God was one. And Abraham was still standing before Kyrios. And Abraham approaching said, Well, you would not destroy together a just one with an impious one, and the just one will be as the impious one that is destroyed. If there should be 50 just ones in the city, will you destroy them? Will you not spare all the place because of the 50 just ones? If there should be so in it, by no means shall you do as this saying, to kill a just one with an impious one, and the just one shall be as the impious one, dead. By no means, O one judging all the earth, so he knows that this is God. Will you not execute judgment? Do the right thing? And the Lord said, if there should be in Sodom 50 just ones in the city, I will leave off doing so to all the place on account of them. So if there's 50 righteous people, I won't destroy it. And Abraham responding said, well, now that I began to speak to my Lord, and I am earth and ashes, I'm nobody, but if the 50 just ones should be lessened to 45, will you destroy because of the 5, all the city? And he said, no way will I destroy if I find there 45. And he, Abraham, added yet to speak to him, and he said, well, but if there should be found there 40? And he said, no way should I destroy because of the 40. And he said, Abraham said, oh, much less, O Lord, if I may speak, but if there should be found there 30? And he, Jehovah God, said, Ava, no way will I destroy because of the 30. And Abraham said, well, since I've taken to speak to the Lord, but if there should be found there 20? And the Lord said, no way will I destroy if I should find there 20. And Abraham said, well, much less, O Lord, a little bit more, if I may speak still once more, one more time, but if there should be found there 10, he's bargaining with God. And God said, no way will I destroy because of the tent. And the Lord went forth, and he ceased speaking to Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. Now, what's going to happen? Is there going to be a destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah? Well, we know the answer. And what is God going to do? To me, it's a type of what's called the rapture, the harpazo, taking people out, grabbing them out from danger or whatever, that's mentioned in other places in the Bible, Old and the New Testament. We'll go through what God does about Sodom and Gomorrah and poor Lot who's stuck there in chapter 19. I hope you join us in the next video. And until then, God bless.